I'm joined now by Dr. Andreas Krieg, an Associate Professor at King's College London Security Studies Department. Hello, thank you for joining me. I mean, you know, obviously, hearing of these casualties, hearing of these deaths is absolutely devastating. It doesn't matter which side, which country, which religion, which ethnicity. It's utterly devastating and heartbreaking. What can you say about what's going on in the area and where it's supposed to be going?
I think you already talked about it with the previous speaker. The problem is we're in this state of strategic ambiguity. We don't know what Israel's end game is. Israel is not forthcoming, not the military, not the intelligence, not policymakers in terms of what is the end game that they can and want to achieve.
Well, they've said to eliminate completely and eradicate utterly Hamas. That's what they've said.
Right, but that's not a strategic end game if it's not properly resourced. The problem with this is the military is an instrument of strategy, of political strategy, right? Israel for the last 20 years has not done anything in terms of political strategy, in terms of advancing the idea of peace and addressing the root cause of grievances of Palestinians, and in terms of working towards a two-state solution. Quite the opposite. They've been trying to build a one-state solution. The problem with that is that the IDF, the military, has been put in this impossible position of having to do strategy, which is political, but doing it as a military. And that in itself doesn't work, because Hamas in itself is an insurgency group. It's a terrorist organization that has an insurgency component. And it's an idea, it's a movement. It's far bigger than just the tens of thousands or 10,000 and whatnot fighters that are armed and fighting Israel. It's a movement in itself. If you want to eradicate a movement, and history has shown this empirically, theoretically, an insurgency movement has never been rooted out purely by military means. And the problem here is that Israel is using the military hammer to hammer down on what they think is a nail, i.e. Hamas. But if you actually want to get rid of the idea, you need to provide Palestinians with a viable alternative, a socio-political one. This is not being presented. So there isn't actually a viable strategy there. What Israel is doing, it's bombing without a reasonable chance of creating success afterwards.
Well, why does there appear to be a lack of will or a lack of cohesive effort among all the massed Arab countries surrounding Israel, which, as we know, is only the size of Wales? It's a tiny country, and all around it are Arab powers with enormous amounts of money at their disposal, some of them, like Egypt, with large swathes of land at their disposal as well. Why have they not combined forces in the way that you suggest maybe Israel should have done to provide Palestinians with Palestine, with a land where they can flourish and in every way benefit and be a proper power in the world and have a state that they can be proud of and that they can thrive in? Why have all those countries with access to so much money, with a shared heritage and a shared belief, why have they not done this?
They have. I mean, if you think about it, Palestine was originally, and if you go back to the 19th century, it was a mainly Arab country, right? Palestinians were Arabs, they were living there. They were expelled in 1948, and most of them went to surrounding Arab countries, still living as refugees, as second-class citizens.
But why are they still living as refugees?
Because the idea, and that's exactly what the previous speaker was saying as well, why Egypt doesn't want to take 2.5 million Gazans in. Because and especially in the context of the rhetoric, and the problem that we all make here is that we always start looking at what happens in Israel and Gaza post 7th of October, as if this was the beginning of the conflict. The conflict's been going on for decades, the repression of Palestinians.
But I'm asking about those decades. Right. I'm asking why have Palestinians been perpetually condemned to this life as refugees, or as somehow stateless, or not able to benefit and flourish in the way that other nations have? Why is it that the amassed forces of Arab countries all around there and beyond, far beyond as well, have not wanted to help them and have not wanted to establish?
As I said, they have. The problem is, though, the idea was always, the hope was that they would one day return to what is their country, Palestine, which has now been occupied by Israel. And so the thing is, you can't just push millions of people back. That's not even a viable option. So most of these people have now reintegrated. And a viable solution that most Arabs have actually endorsed was the 2000 Arab Peace Initiative, which kind of had a plan of creating two states, an Israeli state and a Palestinian state next to it. The problem is Israel has done very little, if anything, to actually advance that idea. They've more undermined it by building more settlements, by kind of squeezing out Palestinians even from the West Bank, making the two-state solution now a farce, actually. It's not something you can actually still implement. And the problem is the 7th of October massacre kind of creates a sort of new starting point, a ground zero, sort of, so to speak, to rethink about what are potential solutions, because both sides are hurting. Both sides want to make a commitment. Both sides are realizing that you can't continue with a status quo. Something's got to give. And I think a two-state solution is still something that needs to have a political will. Israelis haven't shown the political will. They have, whenever they've come under pressure, have actually thought the easy way out, building walls, building fences, kind of creating operational military solution what are actually strategic problems. And that's also the problem with Gaza. It's been, you create a prison, the hubris and the idea was, as long as you keep people locked up, they will never come, they will never dare to actually penetrate that fence, and we're safe and we can ignore the problem. The problem has been ignored for too long. Now something has got to change. And Palestinians and Israelis in particular have to think about how that solution is going to look like. What is a political solution to this problem? Netanyahu is clearly not the right leader to do this, but there are some moderate forces in Israel who are unfortunately not in power now, who are thinking about what can we do to create a viable state entity next to Israel, and allow some of these Palestinians to live in self-determination.
Thank you very much indeed for coming in. And some breaking news in the last few moments.